But, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's what it is. And I think I got a good deal out of it. But yeah, hey, everybody, this is me, Oki. Just wanted to come on here a little bit earlier. Usually I podcast Sunday and Thursdays, but I have a special guest today. It's my brother, EJ. He lives, I say from Denmark, but he lives in Denmark. He's been there for a while. Him and his family, they live there, and he came over. It's a birthday. It's been a really good trip for him and stuff.
Yeah.
How's your trip been?
Amazing. It's nice to not cook. Really good to see your son. Nice to get away from the kids and miss a little bit. So it's been cool.
Nice.
It's cool.
Nice. Cool. So I know some of the things that we did talk about was like just life in general, like money things.
Mm-hmm.
Like how sometimes when we start something new, because he's also into grilling and barbecuing too, and how like we try so many different things, but it gets to the point where things are coming to you and myself a lot faster now.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like this is it for your hobbies, or do you think you'll probably get into something else eventually again?
I think it's it until the kids get a bit older. I think what I'm trying to do is go deeper into my hobbies.
Yeah.
So, me and my partner talk a lot about what is going to be that thing that allows us to do other things. She very strongly believes in my investing.
Yeah.
I went to an investing conference in Brussels. So I'm reconnecting with that. Cooking has been really good.
Yeah.
It's been really useful in terms of just feeding the family.
Yeah.
Today. I think I would like to have some other hobbies, but it's a timing thing.
Timing thing. That makes sense.
And we grill and barbecue. In the winter, we roast and these types of things.
Like slow cooks inside the house.
Exactly. Also getting into gardening. We had really good tomato plants and other things.
You do a lot of herbs too, right?
Yeah, we mainly do herbs. So I think I'm going to do a lot of tomatoes, but we do a lot of herbs because, you see a recipe, it calls for a little bit of this, a little bit of this.
Yeah.
It's nice when you have...
it really like elevates the meal towards the end.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you can walk outside and get your way in there, there it goes.
I think when you made that, I kind of made it a little bit yesterday, but that potato.
Yeah.
And then it was good. It's buttery. But then when you put like the herb on it took it
to the next level.
Took it another notch, yeah.
I think what I'm doing with my hobbies is it's what is the most practical.
Mm-hmm.
Given where the family is.
Yes.
When the kids are older, what I'm hoping is I can do more hobbies, things I'm just curious about.
Yeah.
Interested.
Yeah.
Right now, those things, they can feel a little bit like a waste of time.
Yeah. Do you write them down, or is you just kind of just in the...
I have a list. Like I'd like to swim, ski.
Yeah.
Go snorkeling, these types of things.
Yeah.
Well, right now it seems like a waste of time, and it's much more practical.
Yeah.
Do barbecues,
right there,
make pizza.
Yeah,
these types of things.
I think that's why I gravitated to it too, because it's I slept for like a 12-hour brisket, but it's still like a almost instant gratification.
Yeah.
You
get that good return on investment.
Yeah, exactly. And you learn, like yesterday, we did that's on Texas Wagyu shucks, and I tried to do something different yesterday, and it really didn't come out well. It was chewy. It just didn't work. But I'm glad we did it that way anyway, because I tried it the other way. It worked fine. But in order to keep growing, you're going to make a lot of mistakes,
No, agree, and I liked the way you did it because you also had a skirt steak Wagyu. And it's nice to experiment in a way where you still end up with some nice things that people...
Right. I think it was... Yeah.
Exactly. I think it was a really good way you did
it. Nice. So one of the things that my brother talked about, I think it was... No, yeah, it was when we were in Seattle. we were going around with our good friend Wilson, just going around different coffee shops, different things, just really just being cool, just chill and everything. And one of the things he said to me, which I don't know if he remembers now, but he says like, yeah, he asked me about my inventory. He was like, why don't you try to only have like 3 coffees? And I've been thinking about that ever since. Just because right now, as it sits, I have a lot of inventory. Certain things I could do different things to and all that stuff. But it's one of those things to where it really hit me, because a lot of times if I was really looking at my numbers and, and kind of looking at it as 80-20 type of thing, or really seeing what people are really drinking. And that's what I'm also sensing a lot of, and it's good to have variety, but it really just hit me like I can be just as profitable, but not only that, give to people what they actually want, but what was the logic or the thought process in that, you telling me that?
I think I always think back to a book called The Paradox of Choice. And it talks about, it's a really good TED Talk with a guy.
Okay.
But it basically talks about how people want to have 2 or 3 choices.
Yeah.
And they feel that's when they're at their happiest. They want to know, you want to go to a restaurant, you want to have salmon, chicken, steak, and you want to pick between those depending on what's happening.
Yeah.
And seasons change, things change. The worst thing you can do when you walk into a restaurant now is they hand you the book.
Right.
It's like 200 recipes. Because there's no way they can make 200 recipes.
Right. Great.
The other thing is with kids, I have 2, and people are very busy. People just very busy in their own day.
Yeah.
And, I think in Seattle,
it's like you limit the choices.
At the end of the day, I want something really good. And maybe I want a dark hearty roast. Maybe I want something with a bit of chocolate notes. Maybe I want something that you don't have milk with it. And it's just very subtle, very nice, very delicate. But the other thing that hit me was in Vancouver, I think we went to 5 coffee shops.
Right.
They were all very similar. I think at each one we ordered 3 or 4 drinks.
Right.
And I think what we found was they would have 3 or 4 pour-overs, but they would all be very, very, very similar.
Very similar. Yeah.
And I think when you look at business, the more options, the more inventory, the more complication, and if the customers aren't that interested in it, and it's actually making you less money, what's the point?
What's the point? Right.
So that's kind of what I was thinking about. If I go to Chick-fil-A, when I'm in the States, I just get the same thing.
Right.
I think most people
do that.
Go between 2 or 3 different things.
Yeah.
But they don't really do too much else.
Yeah, venture out too much, I just, yeah.
How, from an 80-20 perspective, what's the 80%?
The Brazilians, the South American coffees, not so much of the African coffees. African coffees kind of come into play a little bit when I can do like a contagious where I can roast it a lot darker.
What would you say is the key difference between the Brazilian and
the African has more flavor. And I don't know if that's the right word, but it has more character. It's kind of hard to figure out really what you're getting. So a lot of times when I say that and you give it to people, they're like, I never tasted something like that. And I don't know if I like that. I'm not comfortable or used to that. With the Brazilian, it's a diner coffee. It hits almost on every single point of view. You can do it light roast, medium roast, dark roast. I can roast it fast. I can roast it slow. It still more so tastes the same.
I think I'm a novice in the whole coffee game, and I've been maybe started with an AeroPress maybe 10 years ago. And, we buy beans, we grind them. The beans are maybe 2-3 months old, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now we use pour over, which you introduced us to. But we don't get much more complicated, much more fancy.
Yeah.
And we still buy beans sort of at the grocery store kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is most people have their coffee with milk as a kind of a latte type of product.
Mm-hmm.
Pour over with 30% milk. And I think when I have coffee here, it's a very unique experience.
Yeah.
Very flavorful coffee, very interesting coffee. I remember we were talking on it yesterday. You made a coffee that was very, very, very dark, but it didn't taste very heavy.
Yeah,
Very light in the taste.
we may have that same one again. We'll see. Maybe even try to do with some.
Yeah,
Maybe an idea.
yeah, exactly. But I think the challenge is the complications are probably lost once you add milk. The delicateness and the complications.
Yeah, they're more so the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think these become the most flavorful, interesting things you've ever tasted. But when you add some milk, it's a little bit diluted out.
Yeah.
And that was also part of the concept of having three. Have one that is like your best version of a pour over, your more interesting. Have one that is, makes a great drink with a latte or a cappuccino. And then, maybe have a rotating spot where you do
something that is just have it as black, right?
Yeah, or, I like I think I was really into shoes at some point. And you need your Oxfords, you need your standard black shoe, you need your standard brown shoe.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And what is very interesting is having purple shoes and other really nice leather shoes. What a lot of the high-end shoe stores would do is they had their 4 or 5 standard shoes.
Yeah.
And then they would do drops where they would experiment.
Okay. I see what you're talking about.
Because I think the thing is you want to have a model where you can probably experiment and have different things and not be locked in. But you also want to have something that is easy for the customer to understand and very simple.
Approachable.
So I think if you boil it down, coffee much better than I do. But if there are 3 or 4 different standard serving methods, like cappuccino, like espresso, then I would have one, in each of those.
I see.
And then if I wanted to experiment, I would just call it, coffee snob choice.
Right.
So if it's a milk-based coffee, I would have one rotating coffee snob's choice, and then for that I can do what I like. Because what I like about that idea is people are still buying your brand. It's not like, I think the problem with having is I have to figure out how to sell 20.
Right. I see.
Yeah, if coffee snob's choice is one, then that's for the person that wants to try something every once in a while.
Yeah.
And they don't all want to try to say that they know they like drinking it with milk. They know they like a cappuccino.
But yeah, I totally understand that. It's funny you say that because I don't know when I'm going to do season 2, but I'm working on it right now. But one of the things that I do want to really get into is experimenting. So I did buy another coffee. I don't think it's ready yet. I may just give it to you and see what you think about it. But it's a Kenyan coffee, and that's where I was going to do like roasting different ways, brewing different ways, documenting all that stuff to like, so people can be like,
To dial it in.
or just to get an idea of like something I do if it's for a coffee that's, let's say, not on the website yet, but I do like that idea that you're saying, it keeps it fresh, but you give people what they want.
I think people are pretty locked into how they have coffee.
Yeah.
So I think when you go out, if you want to rate a coffee shop, you said you want to have their pour over.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what people in the business like to do. Whereas my girlfriend, she would just have a preference for a latte.
Yeah.
Coffee with a little bit more milk. And then I tend to like a flat white, a cortado, a little less milk.
Yeah, a little less milk.
But
Yeah,
still
stronger. Yeah.
And the reason why I think you can't change that about person.
Yeah.
And I think I can do a pour, appreciate it. And if I take some of your coffee, I will have that as a pour over, make sure my girlfriend has it as a pour over.
Yeah.
But I think that serving style is sort of there. It's like someone who goes to Burger King and they order chicken burger, and some people order a Big Mac, not a Big Mac, but a
Beeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think what you can do is play to the strengths. I'm guessing something you would do in a pour over that was very delicate. It gets lost in a latte.
Right. It will. Yeah. Because it's a lot of times it's not strong enough for the latte because it has a lot more milk involvement to it.
Exactly.
So that's why I tend to do like a darker roast.
Exactly. Like
that's where like the Brazilian really shines because it has more of a chocolate.
That's exactly what I say.
And like you said, it's familiar though. It's also,
I think people get a coffee, it's good, it tastes good, but if they get chocolate notes poking through or nut notes poking through, I think that becomes a sign of a higher quality, because just your instant coffee or your run-of-the-mill grocery store, you don't really have that.
yeah.
So that's why I was kind of thinking of the concept of, it's also because I think these coffee shops, I think most of their people coming in just do one or two things.
Right.
But then there's a lot of people who want to rate coffee shops.
Right.
Around 2 or 3 different days. So I think it depends on your audience. I think there was also one shop I really liked where they had a very unique kind of dessert.
Okay. I think that's probably one of the first ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And almost like waffle.
Yeah.
So I think
like the pairings, right?
exactly.
That's one thing I am going to get into because like I have a friend in California. He orders quite a bit for me and he does a lot of them. He does like martinis and stuff like that, like alcoholic drinks, and he pairs it. He plays around with that stuff too. So to like at least show people what else they can do with the beverage.
I think it'd be nice if you made an espresso martini one.
Well, I'll eventually do that.
Very targeted towards that space.
Yeah.
And was made with that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the dog took like 5 minutes. So once we got another 5 minutes, okay. And then I'll release him, okay? I won't. Oh, okay. All right. We'll be back. We'll okay. That's cool. I'm gonna take all that because it's really eye-opening now that you explain it even more so. I can see where this can really go because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is what people want. But it doesn't limit me also. It still gives me that time and space to do the things I want to. And like you said, I can do a Brazilian overbrewed coffee like that. Yeah, or whatever else comes into the pipeline, because I mastered it, you know.
I think run it by the guy who's making decent sized orders, because I think if
Oh yeah, I've noticed it. I talked to him about it, and
you asked him, I think he was saying, give me 3 standard Brazilians. I fill my meal. Give me 2 of the Oki choice. Maybe I try 1 pour over.
Yeah.
Oki choice. And I tried 1 milk based.
no, so I've asked them, but I've also looked at the data. At first it was the crazy ones, but now that now that we've been here already, it's less of the crazy.
When you say crazy, you mean the guys ordering 1s or 2s that just want to...
Like if it's like a Honduras coffee that's very orange forward, or a Kenyan coffee, or even to a smaller degree, sometimes like a Sumatran coffee, something that's just kind of like out there than the norm. That's what I call crazy.
Okay.
But again, like I said, I've been looking at
slimming down.
No, I'm gonna slim down because, like, for instance, the Guatemalan, for instance, the one that you really enjoy, that's one of the ones that I'm actually that I'm almost done with. You know, but I won't be ordering that.
You won't phase it out
because it's interesting, because it's also something that I also have to take in consideration too of costs, because for the most part, at least right now, my costs are the same what I sell those coffees at.
Yeah,
I should sell a little bit higher, but those are what the costs are. But I'm like, are people getting that? You know, I don't want to be pretentious about what I'm saying the coffee tastes like or what you will get out of it. You know, so that's kind of
I think your concept has changed a little bit, and I think before it was, I'm playing with this. Now it's probably like a really good barbecue place or something. Before you really want to do something different,
right?
And what marks your place is doing something different,
right?
And everybody probably goes on the same journey that, say, Aaron Franklin, where at the end of it, you actually just want to make a really good standard product, and you realize that simplicity is the best.
Right.
So I think with your brand being about people drinking quality every day, I think it fits a concept of having a few like options in each area.
Yeah.
And then experimenting with Oki's Choice.
Yeah. Right.
Where you can play around, and that also can become an incubator for other standards.
Yeah.
And I do think if you end up with 6 coffees, it might be one with a chocolate orange note that people say is, wow, I cannot find something like that. This is very neat.
Yeah.
But I think it's tough to figure out which, you know, at the end of the day, you take like pumpkin spice.
Right.
that is just, people are very excited about that. So I think it's just trying to figure out how can you stay small and nimble and still try different things, but not, you don't want to maintain a website with 30 different.
No, not at all. That's just a nightmare. Like, just looking at the inventory right now, I'm like, okay, good. I'm roasting quite a bit. Things are getting lower, but as I get to the point, I'm not going to renew all these things. Okay.
Where do you store it in?
In the back over there. Yeah, in the warehouse.
Can you mix coffee with anything? Like, you talk about flavors.
Oh, man.
Does it come mainly from how the coffee is grown, or do people slice things into?
No, it's just the way that coffee is.
Okay.
You know, that's just kind of just the characteristic of that coffee.
Okay, so people don't mix coffee, maybe.
I do have different extracts for people who want flavored.
Yeah.
Because that's a decent market for me.
Understood.
You know, that's a decent market, and I know which bean that I'll use for that because it's the more neutral.
This is when people want a very particular, like they want hazelnut.
Right, exactly. But like, for instance, I wouldn't mix the current Honduras coffee that I have because that's very orangey flavored. Naturally. So I wouldn't want to mix the hazelnut with that because then that's going to interfere. I want that coffee to
be raw.
Raw.
Exactly.
but majority of the coffees, a lot of them, that's how they are. They have their different unique characteristics of taste. Sometimes it's more elevated than others. But like, for instance, this Guatemalan to me comes out a lot better as a dark roast than it, because it kind of just fuzzy, just kind of gets in the way as a medium roast,
Do you find sometimes where you find like a hidden gem and then the price runs away?
Yeah.
Go back to reorder it?
Yeah, a lot of times it does, but some certain coffees, they don't, just because a lot of times Brazilian coffees are relatively cheap and it's what people want, and because it's the most produced coffees. But yeah, there are coffees that are like, I would say there's probably 2 or 3 coffees that I've reordered all the time.
Okay.
But everything else is more so like a one-off.
Well, yeah.
It's like a one-off. It's like, okay, I'll use it for the time, and it's a one-off.
Like barbecue. You're always going to do chicken. You're always going to do pork belly.
Right.
But if you pick up a turkey wing, it depends on how it comes out, how you
Right.
feel. Or if you're doing lamb, that's nice, but it's not your standard.
Right.
You're experimenting.
I'm experimenting.
But ribs, it's just, it is something that's just going to
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of like where, and it's helpful for everybody because it's still a learning process that I get from it that I can always still take to other coffees that I do, even if I want to try to do like our Brazilian, some type of differently. I kind of can, but I can't because I already know that coffee. But even a roasting technique.
What makes a great Brazilian, like even in the Brazilian space? I'm guessing these beans versus that beans, they're still a different.
There's not that much difference between, to me, Brazilian of this and that, different regions and stuff. I've even had a couple different Brazilians that are like high class. They're really relatively expensive Brazilian, but they're like expensive and they have different notes and all this stuff. But when it comes down to it, you put them side by side. Yeah, people tell the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you gave it to somebody for the morning cup,
they wouldn't notice.
They wouldn't notice, and it's very hard to justify spending that money.
Yeah.
It's only okay to spend that money for myself.
Yeah, I understand. You realize that you want to elevate people's everyday experience.
Yeah.
And that's taking people out of a bag of chalk dust coffee.
Right. That's been there for a very long time.
Into these types of products. So, but then you have to, for someone to make that switch, it has to be approachable from a cost perspective.
Exactly. It has to be for both sides, for me and also for them, because that's really one of the reasons why I got into it. It's like, I didn't mind spending $20 for a small bag of coffee. Why do normal people, everyday people have to do that? Why, so it's like, so I'm playing this fine line of profit, but also I want to give you what I want, and there's profit there, but it's just weird the way that I have to like kind of play that game.
Thin line.
Yeah, but it does help to only have so many choices.
Yeah.
And I could still have one particular coffee if I wanted to just play and experiment and all that stuff to kind of give people what they can explore with if they are beyond the whole, just the, if they're beyond just the 1 or 2 coffees that I do have that are like a step higher than what they're using.
I think when I buy things, I kind of want my standard and then buy something a little new, something a little interesting. And from a quantity, it's also had a lot to do with shipping. You will order 4 bags or 3 bags of your old standard.
Yeah.
And then because it's going to be shipped anyway, you might say, let me try.
Yes.
Choice.
Uh-huh.
And the only issue I see with these type of, you don't necessarily know what you're getting type of offerings, from a coffee perspective, it should be tied to how they typically drink it.
Yes.
Because if you give someone who always uses milk a very delicate
They're not going to come back.
it's going to be a very bad experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you give somebody something very nutty, very chocolatey, that cuts through milk,
Yeah, really well.
but they might pour over, they're going to just say, this is just
This doesn't work. Yeah.
So I think to me, I think that could be a trick of the space.
Yeah. But, I think also just by the way the direction that is going right now, I do enjoy the direction that's going right now, is that I won't even say if this is the right word, beyond specialty. It's not even trying to use that word because that means something, right?
Yeah.
But the coffee is special. It is a specialty grade coffee. It's more so not looking at what everybody else is doing, because everybody else is doing what they're doing.
I think
I've already tried that, actually.
Well, and I think, as you said, that tends to attract a lot of people that want to sample and try and like to keep moving.
Yeah.
I think as a wine store, they like to have the specialty wine guy walk in and have a chat. But I think the better customer is the guy who buys 4 cases or something.
Yeah. The same one every time.
Once.
Yeah.
And maybe he tries something new here or there, but he's actually trying to figure out how can I have a nice quality wine for my guests.
Right.
And myself.
It's a go-to. It works every time. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a hobby, but it's not something they
want to go deep into the rabbit hole.
Exactly. And because I think, as you said to me, the people in the rabbit hole, they want to keep.
Yeah, they have to keep moving.
That's what they do.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't think I've done this episode yet, but it's called like Coffee Snobs Are Like Sluts.
Yeah, I think it's a great episode, great concept.
Yeah.
And, that they need to keep moving. And I think that's something you could build a brand of. You probably want a couple good reviews from them.
Right.
But it's not going to be something you can build a brand of.
Yeah, exactly. That's real. Okay. So this is it, guys. We'll talk a little later, but that was pretty